What's up YouTube, Dow here from Zephyr Games, and today I'm going to bring you my 4 locals breakdown and the deck that I played for all 3 of those locals, and that is of course Synchrons. So, I had 3 locals this weekend, Friday night, Saturday afternoon and Sunday afternoon, and at all 3 of my locals I took Synchrons. Now the build I'm going to show in front of you, I'm going to have on in the background, I'll explain them as we go, but this is going to be more of a review and then kind of a breakdown of the deck rather than going over each individual card for that. If you do want to see a combo video for this as well, and it will utilise all of the little engines I've put into this deck, then by all means smash that like button, get it to at least 50 likes and I will bring that for you. Before I do get started with this, massive shout out to Joe and of course Wolf, who's kind of inspired me to put the deck together, play a couple of different techs and kind of go from there. So before we get into the monsters, the overall breakdowns were as follows. So on Friday I ended up going 3-2, and this is probably the more competitive of all of the locals I attended. But overall the deck did very, very well. The only change that kind of makes from this list is I wasn't playing Plague Spreader, and I don't think I'll be playing Plague Spreader again. And instead of Baby Mud Dragon, I was playing Brotor. Off of the back of that as well, I was also playing or main decking Red Reboot and Harpy's Feather Duster, which I eventually took out. They then became Droplets on Saturday, and then on Sunday it became the Plague Spreader engine, which I'll explain as we go. So on Friday, I won against Cyber Dragons, Salads and Bird Up, but I lost to Dinos and Mech Knights. Pretty much with the Cyber Dragons, I won the dice roll, went first, he couldn't break the board. Then going game 2, he went first, he ended his board on Infinity and Dragoon. I was able to bait out the Infinity Dragoon and have a Talents. So because he'd already negated with Dragoon, he went up to 4k. I activated the Talent, stole his Dragoon, popped his Infinity, and then attacked for game because he'd already taken the 4,000 off of Verte. In the Salad matchup, again, I was able to go first, set up a pretty powerful board that he couldn't break. Then he was able to set up his back row break that I couldn't deal with. And then in game 3, I pretty much just had all the answers. I had Called by the Grave, I had everything that kind of protected my board. And he didn't see what is this deck's biggest weakness, which is like Droplets and Dark Ruler, because it is very monster heavy. Like your end board is insanely good and it can play through a lot of interruptions and hand traps, but it can't play through Dark Ruler and Droplets, which come Sunday is where I put in a couple of little techs, and I'll show you my side deck as well. On Saturday, I went 2 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss. My wins again were against Salamangrates and Madolches. My draw was against Altergeist, and trust me, game 2 was horrible. Game 2 was literally Stardust Synchron beatdown because he opened up 2 right. So literally game 1, I went first, built my board, he set his 5 back row. Amongst his 5 back rows was 2 crackdowns, and I had no way to stop the traps, so that was painful. Then in game 2, he literally opened up Imperial Order, he opened up Torrential Tribute, and he opened up 2 rivalries. So I was literally like locked under Stardust Synchron. But luckily he wasn't getting into a monster, so I just kept poking with Stardust Synchron. He kept burning with Imperial Order. Time was called, he had 100 life points left, I was untouched, and it ultimately ended in a draw. The loss was against Subterrors. I built my board, negated all of his plays, and then he activated Mystic Mine, and that pretty much just shut me down. I had 3 Synchros on the board. Obviously this deck doesn't play high level tribute monsters, so I couldn't out the Mystic Mine until he managed to regain his resource. So by that point he had maintained so much resource, broke my board apart, and yeah, then I was pretty much left defenseless on that one. Going into Sunday, Sunday was more casual. I ended up going 3-1. I faced Furhire, Crusadia Wind-Ups, which literally game 1, he went Wind-Up Magician into Wind-Up Shark, into another Wind-Up Magician, into another Wind-Up Magician, and his board was insane. And then eventually, because he broke my board, like, what did I do? I think I misplayed, and I ended my board on only a single Stardust, and he was just constantly going monster, 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 and eventually was going to go Verte Dragoon. I was like, alright, cool, that's game. After that, they kind of obviously went back into the shell, and I was able to win from that point on because he couldn't break the boards. Then Fur Highs was Fur Highs. Galaxy Eyes was the other win. And the loss was to Virtual World. Literally went 2-1. Virtual World, my tech in the side deck, put in a lot of work. But then ultimately game 3, he made a Math Mech, the big level 12 guy, which wouldn't have been an issue because I can just make like any of my monsters crash into it or go over it. But the annoying thing is I either opened up all tuners or opened up all non-tuners. So I was kind of like digging and digging and digging, trying to get to stuff, and ultimately never got to anything. So that was the overall weekend. To be fair, I kind of finished mid-table. I think it was like 6th on Friday. I finished third or fourth on Saturday, 4th I believe it was, and then I finished joint 2nd on the Sunday. So the deck did really, really well. As I've already explained, its biggest weakness is Dark Ruler no more. But we'll kind of go over the list. So obviously triple Junk Synchron, triple Stardust Synchron, triple Doppel Warrior, triple Junk Converter, 2 Acasta Dawnwalkers and the 1 Acasta. This is purely because I don't own a third Dawnwalker. If I owned a third Dawnwalker, it would be in there 100%. 2 Caligo Claw. I could only find 2 when I built it on the Friday. I left it at 2, and I've never really had an issue. I've never looked back to it. The Converging Wheels Dragon, great if you don't open it, sucks if you open it. The reason I swapped to the Baby Mud Dragon, and again this is a shout out to Joe on that one, is I was looking at all the options. I was looking at the mini Stardust that you could get, but you had to play Stardust Dragon. And ultimately on Sunday I went with the Baby Mud Dragon purely because the best thing about it is because it can be treated as a tuner or a non-tuner. It does give you that flexibility. Like yes, Bro Tour will give you that discard, but as I was summoning Bro Tour, I never found myself actually using its effect. I probably used it once to get a Doppel Warrior. But the kind of combo is literally, you bring both these guys out, you use the Baby Mud Dragon plus Stardust Synchron to make your Hyper Librarian. You can then use the Baby Mud Dragon to turn the Hyper Librarian into a dragon. That then means that at any point, if you bring back the Stardust, you can use Stardust and Hyper Librarian to make Abyss. So you don't need to go as far out of your way to make Abyss as you want to. And I also played a lot of different Synchros that a lot of people weren't playing through builds that I saw. So I'll go through those when we get to the extra deck. Stardust Trail, again, bit of a brick, but the idea is that if you've already opened up the Arriving Light, you can search out the Illumination, send the trail, and then once you trigger the Stardust, you bring this back. The only issue is, 9 out of 10, when I actually get to Illumination, I've already used the Stardust Tribute to come back, so this is only going to be used later in the game. Cyber Synchron puts in actually a huge amount of work. The best little tech that I love doing with this is Cyber Synchron make the Converging Wheel into a level 2, and then it's just so much easier to make the Stardust Dragon later on in the game. Because the idea is that you then use the Cyber Synchron plus, obviously if you've used Doppel Warriors or anything else, you can sync it off, but you leave the Converging Wheel because it can only be used as either Tribute Fodder for the Stardust, or it's going to be used as Synchro material for this guy. So the idea was I just left it on the board, made it level 2, and then as soon as I got Abyss Dragon, I just then used Abyss and Converging Wheel. Or you ended up using like Converging Wheel plus a level 1 plus a Chaos Dragon, and it just made it so much easier to make. Play Spreader was just the last minute tech that I put in on the Sunday, just to kind of trial out the Synchro Overtake of summoning this guy out. And what that kind of gave me the ability for was something like normal summon Doppel, or not even normal Doppel. If I brought this back from Grey, special the Doppel, make a Herald, give me 2 tokens, play Spreaders in the graveyard or banish, doesn't really matter. And then from that point on, I was able to, you know, you could play all of your combos with having the negate. So you never even needed to worry about an Ash, you never need to worry about like an Imperm, you didn't even need to worry about an Nibiru, you were completely covered. But that never came out, I've never used it. I'll probably need a couple more weeks with this in it to kind of test it and see if it does add any utility. But 90% of the time I was using Overtake to get to Junk Synchron. It is just the better option. The last 2 cards are the Assault Mode engine. This kind of takes the place of another Dawnwalker. Now, I'm not saying that I would take these out because obviously this is a 5-card engine for that one particular Dawnwalker, but you could do. But the idea is if you technically open up 1-for-1 and or the better one, E-Telly, plus a Dawnwalker, that gives you 2 level 8 Synchros for near enough absolutely free. You use 3 cards, but that gives you 2 level 8 Synchros, and both of these can bait out any of the hand traps. So both of them, including E-Telly, can bait out an Ash Blossom. This guy, when it makes the Synchro, can bait out the Imperm. And the idea is what you're trying to do is you're trying to take away the Veilers, the Imperms, and the Ashes, so that when you make your Speeder, which is your best monster, you haven't got to worry about any of that. I really like this engine. There were a couple of times, like, even if you open this, as long as you don't have a normal summon, like Junk is always going to be my normal in my opinion. But if you don't have a normal, this can then be your normal, and you know that instantly, not only can it be your Synchro level 8, but you can basically make it from a 6, a 7, an 8, or a 9. So it gives you quite a big range of what you do, because the idea or the combo is this guy searches out Beast, discard the Beast to search the trap, reveal the trap to revive the Beast. Beast then increases its level from 1 to 4. So you can make it an 8, you can make it a 7, you can make it a 6, you can make it a 5, and Psy Reflector can go from there. So it does put in an awful lot of work. And I really, apart from opening up the trap when you don't want to, it is very nice discard fodder, especially with the Crocosaur that I was playing in the extra deck. But if you open up that part of the combo, it does kind of suck. But I was actually siding out. It was a very easy 5-card engine. I was siding out and siding back in when I kind of need to. So like if I knew I was going second, I would take that engine out. Again, like I said, I wouldn't replace it. Like if I got the third Dawnwalker, I wouldn't replace this engine. I still think it's really good and put in a lot of work. The last 2 cards was 2 Effect Veiler. Again, I could only find 2, but the reason that we actually play Effect Veiler over anything else is because sometimes it does come up with the Arriving Light that you can just special summon this as a free level 1. It's also a light in the graveyard, so it works for your Chaos Dragon as well. And it also can be revealed off of the Chaos Dragon. So I could possibly put more hand traps in this. I might have got lucky at the weekends because most of my die rolls I won, and I was able to pretty much build the indestructible board. My opponent couldn't get through, and if they did get through, I had enough resource to kind of come back. So yeah, moving on to the spells, we have Triple Synchron Overtake. I borrowed the third one off of a friend. Triple Tuning, so I'm not really going to go over these too much. Double Talents, this put in a lot of work this weekend as well. The single Black Garden put in a lot of work. Illumination, Monster Reborn, Reinforcement of the Army, E-Telly, and the combo with the E-Telly was also 1-for-1. Alongside a Foolish Burial, a Arriving Light, and a Call by the Grave, and then of course the 1 Assault Mode. So these don't need to go up in too much depth. I mean, the Assault Mode is a dead card, but you literally just need it to search out, to reveal, to summon. These are part of the Psy Reflector combo, because obviously 1-for-1 can still get you your Psy Synchron as well. The only other thing that I was considering was playing something like Ghost Ogre, so that even if I do open up the engine, this still becomes a free level 3 Synchron, or a free level 3 tuner. Reinforcement of the Army is pretty straightforward. You can search out your Junk Warrior, your Doppel Warrior, or your Junk Converter, so you've got plenty of targets for that. Monster Reborn free extender. Black Garden is actually quite important, because with the Black Garden, you can chain block your Junk Converter, reviving your Junk Warrior. Sorry, reviving your Junk Synchron from the graveyard. And then with Black Garden, the only real reason you'd put it on the board is if you give your opponent 2 tokens, you can destroy it, bring back your Garden Rose Maiden for a free level 5, or you can bring back a Doppel Warrior. It's very rare that I actually use that occurrence, but there are sometimes if your opponent's like holding on to an Imperm, or you feel they're holding on to an Imperm, you can actually activate Black Garden, summon your monsters, give them a token, so then it means they can't Imperm you, and then continue your plays. You're only going to ever be able to give them 5 tokens on the board. And another massive thing about giving them 5 tokens is if you can get a monster that is 4k in the graveyard, you can destroy all of that and bring it back. Now, obviously, you're not going to be able to sync this off because you can't go any higher, but it does mean that if you activate Black Garden and this was in the grave, you could revive it. If you only give them 4 tokens, you can also revive an Abyss Dragon. So keeping in mind with that, the only targets you can really revive are the Garden Rose Maiden, your Shooting Majestic Star Dragon, your Abyss Dragon, and of course your Doppel Warrior. 9 out of 10, again, it's just becoming a free discard card, an ability to chain block. You could take it out completely if you wanted to. It was another card that I was constantly siding out. Talon's put in a lot of work because this deck is hand trap. Like, literally, it screams Imperm, well, less so Imperm, but it does scream Veiler and Ashmi every single time. Plus, it's one of your only ways to out a Dragoon. Like, you can synchro build, but being able to kind of obviously use your talents, and that's why the Psy Synchron or the Psy Converter engine is so important, because that's 2 routes of activating card effects that my opponent will negate. So I can play through 2 negates, go in second, and I still have my Junk Warrior plays and everything else. Tuning is what tuning is. Synchron Overtake, it wasn't until the Sunday that after I spoke with Joe, he was like, yeah, you very rarely actually want to add with this card, because I made the rookie mistake of having Reinforcement of the Army and Synchron Overtake, and I activated Synchron Overtake first and added, and then got drolled. And I was like, yeah, crap. Whereas if I had gone Reinforcement of the Army first and then got drolled, I still could have used the Synchron Overtake, because the Synchron Overtake then would have let me special summon the Junk Synchron. I could have then normal summoned the Junk Converter, and I would have been able to go pretty much full combo from there to kind of go that route as well. So definitely learnt my lesson on the Overtake. Such a good card, and it's the only reason that I put in Play Spreader, to kind of see how it goes and how it works. So that's it for the spells, and pretty straightforward and simple. I'll show you the side deck first. So we'll start with the cards that went in and out of the deck. So on Friday it was, not Twin Twisters, on Friday it was Red Reboot and Harpy's Feather Duster in the main. On Saturday it was Droplets, and on Sunday it was Plague Spreader, and one other card that I can't remember. Oh, Foolish Burial, because I put Foolish Burial in on the Sunday as well. Then, changing up the side decks, I actually went with Twin Twisters. It made a lot more logical sense. I agreed when I watched one of Wolf's videos, just for the fact that it lets you discard. So sometimes with your Junk Warrior or your Junk Synchron, you're like, right, okay, cool, I haven't got a target to revive. I'm going to neg just by normal summoning this. So the Twin Twisters can really, really help. And it's kind of good going first and second, because you just set it and go from there. And the one thing that I was always paranoid about or concerned about was the pure fact that this deck can't outdo a Dark Ruler No More. Like, if they Dark Ruler No More me, apart from the Cyber Synchron in the graveyard and maybe some Recursion next turn, like, they can out my entire board, and I'm probably going to be in a lot of trouble. So I wanted to kind of play cards like this, like Droplet, that I could set and draw off of Librarian as well, and still be in a different position if I do get Dark Rulered. Triple Nibiru, put in a bit of work. Triple Eveny, never really put it in. Like I said, I was winning the dice rolls, and I was kind of happy from that point. The spicy tech that I put in was Triple Gravity Collapse, and I actually played this against the Virtual World player, and it pretty much ended their turn. You only put this in going first. The issue with it is that you have to open it. The second issue with it is they have to. It's exactly like Solemn Warning. So you can't activate this on a spell or trap, I believe. It has to be their normal summon. And it's not like Strike, so it's very specific. But the idea is that when your opponent summons a monster, negate the summon and destroy that card, your opponent cannot summon a monster until the end phase of this turn. So it ends their turn. Now the idea is, if your board is, or if you've got the Chaos Dragon in the graveyard, you just bring it back. That's a very easy free Gravity Collapse target. If you get Dark Rulered, any of your monsters, apart from ones that you might want to save for the next turn, is a Gravity Collapse target. A TG Hyper Librarian, if you've left it on the board but haven't been able to link it, sync it off, very easy target, because it doesn't like judge on the number of the synchro level monster or anything like that. Literally just tribute a synchro monster or send in a face up synchro monster. That's it, done, dusted. So the only time I ever put it in, and the only time I ever saw it, it put in a lot of work. But going forward, I'm not too sure if I would keep it or not. I really like the idea of being able to go, cool, Gravity Collapse, that's it, done. I don't mind if I get Dark Ruler, I don't mind if I get Droplet. The only sucky thing would be if I get Dark Rulered and Twinned, and then I'm like, yeah, cool, GG, bro. But if that happens, that happens. Now moving on to the extra deck, again, I'm going to show you more than 15 cards. This is not the end, this is just all of the cards that I went through over the weekend. And I'll talk about the ones that are staple, that have stayed in the entire weekend as we go. So on the freeze, of course, we've got the Metal Marcher. You'll also notice that I didn't actually play the Celestial Shaman. I put it in on a Friday, and I never made it. And I was like, do I really want it in here? And then I kind of went from there. Now, let me lay them all out first. So you've got your Herald, you then got your Junk Warrior, you then got your Synchron, and obviously Garden Rose. I actually love this card, I think it's so good. Librarian, Speeder, Archfiend Zombie Skull, Coral Dragon, put in a lot of work for me actually. Dawn Dragster, Crystal Wing, Omega, Chaos Dragon, Abyss, and then obviously the other three cards that shuffled around was a Crocosaur, Satellite, and a Shooting Majestic. So, the Quandrax went in on the Sunday because the plan was to use Quandrax to make Satellite Warrior to give more disruption and try and blow out the board. So these two made their appearances on the Sunday only. Crocosaur was another addition that I added, not last minute, but it's one that I added later on the Saturday, purely because on the Friday when I was doing a lot of testing, when I was playing the deck, I was like, oh, I can actually make 9s a little bit better. And the thing with Crocosaur is it gives you that quick effect pop, but it also gives you that additional draw. And I think the max, I ended up drawing 3 off of this guy because I went Coral plus 3 level 1s. And I was just like, cool, draw 4, 1 off of Coral, 3 off of the Crocosaur. And then obviously if you add Librarian into the mix, you're drawing 5, which is great. Herald of Arc Light, never made it. I would still keep it in. There are times when you can make it. Metal Marcher, rarely did I make it. The issue I had is there's a lot of times where I'm missing a lot of non-tuners. Like, I need non-tuner monsters. And that's quite ironic with Coral Dragon, but we'll get onto that in a minute anyway. Junk Warrior, you only have it in here for the name. The exact same with the Archfiend Zombie Skull. I decided it just looks more badass. You put this in for Plague Spreader Zombie as your Plague Spreader target. Never needed it, never resolved it. It's probably going to get cut straight away. Axel Synchron is purely in here for the Foolish Burial attribute and the fact that it can adapt its level, and of course it has that quick effect to synchro during your opponent's turn. Very rarely did it ever stay on the board to use its synchro's effect. I was just synchro in with it straight away. But it's, in my opinion, it's a staple in the deck. So, you know, if you're taking 3 out, this one's coming out, the Quandrax is coming out for now, and probably the Satellite Warrior, but up to personal preference, you could put the Crocosaur in and anything like that. Garden Rose, again, rarely, I want to say rarely did I make it, but if you've baited out all the hand traps already, you're going Junk Speeder and then Librarian. If you haven't, then you're going Garden Rose. And the amount of times I actually did the Garden Rose into Crystal Wing combo was crazy. And the best thing about that is it just gives you Crystal Wing. It puts them in a position where they have to Nibiru you now, otherwise you're getting Crystal Wing back. Off the back of that as well, with Omega, Omega can put Garden Rose back into the graveyard. So if they clear your board but leave any of these 2 in the grave, you just bring them straight back. It's like, yeah, cool. You can also bring back Coral and Abyss. So it's just absolutely nuts. Is it Coral and Abyss? Is it level 8 or lower? Yeah, no. So you can bring back Coral, Abyss. You can bring back any of your dragons, which is mad. Librarian is Librarian, draw, and draw again. Junk Speeder is Junk Speeder. Now, the other one that is questionable that a lot of people are like, huh? Is Coral Dragon. Only once over the entire weekend did I look in my extra deck and go, I need a level 6 that isn't a tuner. Everything apart from that, Coral was perfect. So there's a lot of times when I was like, right, okay, cool. I still need a tuner on the board, but I want to sink into Coral. So like if I had a Resolved Doppel Warrior and give myself 2 tokens, I was like, right, okay, cool. I will use my Cyverse Synchron and my Junk Speeder to make Coral Dragon. I then get a draw off of Hyper Librarian. I then have the option to turn Coral Dragon into Dawn's Dragster or Crystal Wing, or of course either of the other level 8s. By doing so, I then draw 2 off the Hyper Librarian, and if I made the Chaos Dragon, I would then Excavate as well. So I would draw 2 and then Excavate 5. So Coral Dragon actually put in a heck of a lot of work. Not to mention its discard effect is really good when you're playing a couple of Garnets. So once you've activated, so for example, let's say we've made one of the level 8s, probably going to be this guy. So let's say we've made this guy off of the Cyverse Connector. We've already got an Assault Mode Trap in the hand that's just a dead card. So that's an easy discard, pop and go. Dawn Dragster, rarely did I make it. I think the one big thing that I would criticise about my own extra deck is I only have 2 Spell and Trap Negates in these guys. And a lot of the time I was ending my board on Crystal Wing, which usually I'd think would be absolutely fine. But obviously if my opponent uses like any spell or trap, that it kind of goes, crumbles and cries. Omega put in a lot of work, you know, ripping from the hand. Because at the end of the day, if you can still get this by playing through 2 hand traps. So you rip another one, you go standby phase, you put Garden Rose back into the deck, you activate Omega, you're ripping another one from the hand. They've got even less resource to play with, and still try and break your board of what could possibly be a Crystal Wing plus a Dawn Dragster, or Crystal Wing plus an Abyss, or plus a Herald, or anything along those lines. Chaos Ruler is so important. The fact that it excavates the top 5, if it whiffs, yeah, it sucks. If it doesn't whiff, your ideal targets of what you're getting in the graveyard is you're ideally trying to get to a Junk Synchron to the hand. But then after that, you want a Stardust in the grave. You also want a Doppel Warrior to the hand. You want a Junk Converter to the grave. And everything from that point, because you haven't used your normal summon, you're just able to play further on. And that's what makes him so, so good. Abyss is Abyss. It kind of is what it is. Crocosaur put in a lot of work for me. There's a lot of times where I was like, right, okay, well, I could make an 8, but I could also make a 9. I was like, let's make the 9, let's get the additional draw. I've already gone through the Abyss combo, I've already gone through everything I need. I've now got the ability, rather than having, rather than going into an Abyss for a negate because I didn't have the dragon, I've got the ability to pop, I've got the ability to banish, I've got the ability to negate. So I kind of covered different areas, so that if my opponent had a card that's like, you can only activate 1 per turn and I negate the activation, they can activate again. As long as it's a continuous spell, like I would let them activate a continuous spell so they couldn't do it again, and then Crocosaur it, and that's fine, I'm still good to go. Shooting Majestic Star Dragon, again, puts in a lot of work. I love the way the card works. You could arguably, this is like an easier card is of course Satellite Warrior. But when I was making my plays, there was a lot of times where I was making this a lot easier, and Satellite Warrior isn't really worth it to me right now, purely for the fact that I was going first. The idea was I was building such an unbreakable board that my opponent was passing, and that was it, done, dusted. Speaking of this one, so this one came in last minute. When it did on the Sunday, and when I needed to clear off board, I didn't even need to, I overextended, went into this guy, cleared a board off, had a massive attack on this guy and Crystal. So, no, I had Crystal and the Shooting Majestic, Satellite and the Shooting Majestic, which is pretty cool. But other than that, it did its job, it did what it needed to. I'm still playing around with the deck, really, really like it. I did try the... so Coral only went in on the Saturday. I was playing the Stardust Charge Warrior. And that's kind of where I was like, I made the Stardust Charge Warrior and I was like, I can't really go anywhere. Like, I've got a Synchro 4, which isn't going to get me anywhere, or a tuner of 4 that's not going to get me anywhere. I've got a tuner of 1 that can get me into somewhere, but I was like, I was more commonly having non-tuners on the board. And that's also where the Mud Dragon comes in. So because the Mud Dragon can be a tuner or a non-tuner, it gave me that ability of, if I wanted to, I could sync it with the Coral Dragon as a level 1 non-tuner. But if I didn't want to, I could use it as a tuner later on. So I could make Dawn Dragster, like under Hyper Librarian, for example, I could go Coral Dragon, draw 1 off of Librarian. Coral Dragon plus any level 1, make the Formula Synchron, draw 2 cards. Use the level 1 tuner, which is the Baby Mud Dragon, as the tuner if I want to. Make a Crystal Wing, draw another one. So I've drawn 3 cards. Yes, I've gone through a Dawn Dragster, but I've been able to get into a Crystal Wing. My opponent at this point would have already burnt their hand traps and kind of gone from there. I think the only, or one of the biggest things that I didn't really do or didn't really dive into as much that I would have liked to have done is I was so worried about Junk Speeder getting stopped. So Junk Speeder getting imperm, Junk Speeder getting like Vaded or anything like that, that when I had level 5s on the board or the ability to make level 5s, I was going Garden Rose when really I could have just gone the Speeder route and my opponent wouldn't have been able to do anything. But I still think the safer route is the Garden Rose and it puts in a lot of work. Anyway, I know this has been a long video, but I kind of wanted to do a tournament report, I wanted to do a breakdown, and I wanted to kind of show you the list as a whole. If you do want to see test stands or combos with this deck, because they do have some crazy combos, then smash that like button, get to at least 50 likes, and I'll be more than happy to bring those videos for you as well. As absolutely always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.